Now, there's some good news for retail today. Despite previous concerns from the industry over its easing out of lockdown, new data shows sales have bounced back strongly, almost to pre-pandemic levels. Well, retail spending increased by 13.9% in June. Clothing and footwear sales increased by 70%. However, the sector still remains one of the worst hit from the lockdown. The data shows online spending, which saw huge popularity at the start of lockdown, has fallen as shoppers started returning to the high street mid-June. But at 31.8%, shopping online remains much higher than previous months. Well, we can speak now to the retail analyst, Kate Hardcastle, who joins us from Leeds. Always great to see you, Kate.
Thanks, Isabel. Great to see you too.
Look, hold the front page. Here we are. And for once, we're actually talking about some good news for retail.
It is good news, and I'm not going to distract from that because retail needs all the good news it can get right now. It's been such a challenging time, and we know that it's a very human business. It's very much connected with the fact that we recognise the companionship we get from those stores being open and the salesmanship of people who are serving us on there in retail. So it is good news, but when you do dig down into those figures as you just have, it's not a return to normal. We are certainly still buying a lot more food, which makes sense because many of us haven't returned to restaurants and cafes, etc. just yet. A lot of people working from home, a lot of families at home. So we would expect to see that increase for the summer holiday period anyway in terms of food at home. But we've also noticed that people are buying perhaps purchases that they've been holding off for a few months, bigger items, and not things that are a bit more disposable and a bit more fashion-led like clothing. So that means that certain sectors are still very much feeling the pain.
OK, so let's talk a little bit about clothing then. They are still down a third lower than it was in terms of sales going into the pandemic. Why is that then?
Well, we do buy emotionally, as you know, and very much we react to what we see. Up to 60% of purchases can be in a store without actually any premeditated planning because we see something we like, we're not anticipated we were going to buy it, but we treat ourselves and we buy emotionally. And we reward ourselves. So that going from the end of a day work or the end of a week at work and going and bobbing in to buy yourself something for the weekend or going out. And we're not going out either to the events. We know that weddings haven't been happening, which would see the splurge for people buying wedding outfits. We know that holidays have been significantly reduced. And a lot of people are making the decision that be it a slow fashion decision, so ethical and environmental, or actually watching the pennies, they're going to make do and mend. They're going to stick with what they've got. And that's hit fashion in a hard, big way. They need to see that bounce back in that sector, or we're going to see, unfortunately, more challenges, more job losses, more store closures, as we've heard from the likes of Marks and Spencer and John Lewis.
Yeah, and I was going to talk about the fact that online shopping, although it's gone down, is still higher than it was previously in comparable years, which is obviously good for the likes of Amazon, but not necessarily great news for the high street.
We've seen years of growth in a matter of weeks, Isabel. I mean, it's been so significant in terms of that change. Now, the change was happening anyway. We know we needed better plans for our high street. We know that we had to look more towards a social offer on the high street rather than just pure retail. It couldn't just be doors and doors of retail opening 9 to 5:30 anymore. But we do shop very differently online. It's a very different culture. It's a different modus operandi, which means that some of the bigger brands, some of the more maybe traditional brands have struggled to convert what's required there. You build relationships in different ways, you sell fashion in different way, and trends come through in different ways. So yes, we've had great news for some very focused online operators and those that have been transitional in their business. But let's hand on another high. Actually, we've seen a lot of independents and small businesses actually be able to pivot much quicker, and they've been able to benefit from some of the spending online too.
OK, like it. Kate, what about the ONS's reputation in terms of its retail analysis? Sometimes people are a bit critical of their ability to do it accurately, so much so that the Retail Consortium publish their own figures.
Yes, I think that makes sense. I mean, it is a very live event when we shop and things are changing all of the time. And we get lots of different figures in as analysts. We get everything from the footfall figures through to sales figures and then sector-specific figures too. And it's our job to try and analyse it and bring it to you. So what I would say, rather than criticise any particular one camp, is I go out there, I go into the stores and I sanity check the figures that we get through. And I can tell you quite clearly that footfall is definitely low, confidence is definitely low, and it is taking a resilient shopper to get back out there. And when they do shop, Isabel, one thing's really clear. They're not spending that dwell time. They're just not in store engaging in the same way. And that would lead to a lot of ad hoc, on the moment type purchases as well. So we know that we've sanity checking what we're hearing and we're seeing it for ourselves.
And I suppose you'd give a bit of a note of caution on how much we can read into how we're doing economically from the retail figures, because, of course, retail is only about 30% of our consumer spending. As you say, we're not going into those bars and restaurants and doing those leisure activities.
Yeah, I think we've got to understand that consumer spending is a massive part of the economy. It's made up of lots of different sectors, and maybe this could hopefully signal a future for those sectors working together more. We've seen a galvanising of people within the hospitality industry, for instance, when they were appealing for the reopening and appealing for that 2 metre distancing to be reduced down, that they actually worked together and did so at speed. I think we've got to accept that huge changes afoot. Technology is going to be a big part of that. But what we've really got to accept is that the temperament of the consumer, the way we feel about spending in the economy, will always reflect in everything, be that how we save, be that how we shop, or indeed bigger purchases like homes too. So there's a lot of salience in how we react to things as consumers. It isn't just about the retail element about it. It's generally our emotion, our mood and our pockets that make big change out there.
Fabulous. Kate, thanks for explaining all of that. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Isabel. Take care.